Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our end of session review webinar. I think everyone's still kind of getting into the webinar, so we'll give it about a minute and then we'll get started after that. So yeah, welcome everyone and hang tight. All right, while we wait, actually, I'm going to drop in a little icebreaker question for everyone to think about. Feel free to answer in the chat. And at the same time, while you're in the chat, if you want to drop in your name and your organization, that would be helpful as well. So let me drop in the question for y'all to think about. All right, for those who are just coming in, I'm gonna drop in our question of the day to get this started. So, is dream summer vacation destination for you all folks who might be doing something fun this summer or anywhere in time? Doesn't have to be this summer, but future. A lot of good answers. New Zealand, Hawaii, Switzerland, the beach. I like that. The beach. Anywhere with the beach. Italy. Nice. Ireland. Okay. Greece, Peru, a cruise. All right, great.
Somebody said outer space. Love it.
All right, it's 12:05, so we will get started, but feel free to keep putting in your dream destination into the chat, and other folks can definitely read through them as we go through. But yeah, so thank you everyone for joining Illinois Action for Children's FY25 Legislative Session Review. As many of you guys know, we do this every year when session ends to just kind of update you all on what happened in this past session, some of the wins that we were able to accomplish, and some of the ongoing projects and policy work that we will continue to do as we look at FY26. So for those who don't know me, my name is Michael Kim. I'm the Director of Public Policy here at Illinois Action for Children. I am here with our team, and I will let Angela Farwig and Josie Escobar introduce themselves quickly here.
Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Farwig with IAFC. It is fabulous to be with all of you here today. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Josie Escobar, and I'm a Policy Associate at Illinois Action for Children. Excited for this webinar, and it was very interesting seeing everyone's responses to the question. Outer space was a bit wild, so that I want to see who said that once I look at the comment.
All right, I'm gonna hand it over to Letty, our Spanish translator, for her to give a quick instructions for those who would like to have Spanish translation and how you can access that. So I will hand it off to Letty.
Thank you so much. And you also have to put me in the Spanish channel as well. I will be giving my announcement now. Give me 1 second. Ahora, muy buenas tardes. Muy bueno. Sí, ya son buenas tardes. Ya son más de las 12, ¿verdad? Entonces, muy buenas tardes a todos. Si tienen una computadora, por favor, escojan el icono o el globito de abajo de interior de abajo de su pantalla y luego va a escoger el lenguaje. Si tiene un teléfono, una tableta, toque su pantalla, le van a aparecer 3 puntitos abajo de esa pantalla. Después va a escoger la interpretación de idiomas y luego va a escoger el lenguaje. Y luego ya después de allí, a mero arriba, a su parte de arriba de su pantalla, va a escoger finalizar o done, dependiendo cómo esté su dispositivo programado. Y eso sería todo y yo los voy a ver en el canal de español. Bienvenidos, muchísimas gracias.
Thanks, Liddy. Yeah, so I will go to the next slide here. So as you guys can see, we have a good amount of things to cover. So our quick agenda is that we are going to do a review over the state budget that was passed this June, and then do some substantive state legislative review, and then we are going to talk a little bit more about ECE updates, which will consist of diving into some of the information on the new Department of Early Childhood. There's going to be some question sections after each piece, so feel free to just type in your questions into the chat room, and then we will have a break for questions that you guys can answer directly. So if you guys don't mind waiting a little bit for questions for that part, that would be great. And then after that, we'll do a couple of survey questions that we would like to ask the field on some of the areas where you guys want to focus and get that input from you all. And then we will close out on how we can keep the momentum going. So hopefully that sounds good. And I will pass it to Josie real quick to talk about some of the advocacy wins we've had this past year.
Yes. So before we unpack a really huge legislative session, first off, we wanted to start off this webinar by saying a huge thank you to all of our advocates, providers, professionals, parents, and everyone this past spring for taking action this session and getting involved in our different advocacy actions. So this spring we had several opportunities for our base to get involved, from contacting your elected officials, attending our advocacy day in April, to resharing our posts on social media. So on this slide, you can see a couple of stats around our advocacy actions. 260 Illinoisans took action, and we sent over 541 messages to Illinois General Assembly elected officials. This is a really huge number, and it's one of the many ways elected officials can get involved and see our advocacy asks. Second, in April, Illinois Action for Children and our We the Village Coalition partnered with Start Early, COFI, the Illinois Child Care for All Coalition, Latino Policy Forum, Raising Illinois, and SEIU for our second annual joint advocacy event. We had over 300 participants attend and show their support for increasing funding for early childhood programs, and there was many opportunities for advocates to meet directly with their legislators, which was really exciting to see. I'm sorry we don't have a lot of our really great pictures on here, but it was a really amazing time, and I appreciate everyone who got to attend. And then lastly, utilizing our social media was also critical in getting the word out about our advocacy asks, such as the new Department of Early Childhood, talking about increased funding for ECACE, and then continuing to socialize the Smart Start Illinois plan. In total this spring, we had over 4,957 engagements over Facebook, Instagram, and X, which is the old Twitter. So this engagement includes likes, comments, and shares. And this number is actually a significant increase from our total engagement from last year, which was only 500. So that's a really big win from our communications and marketing and our coalition and advocacy team, which is really exciting. So just thank you to all the organizations and individuals who engage in our content. And we know we have a bigger platform because of all this really exciting activity. So this slide only shows a small snapshot of what we accomplished as part of our advocacy engagement, But this is really all to say thank you so much to everyone in this room and everyone outside of this for your continued engagement and support with Illinois Action for Children. A little bit does go a long way, and we're excited to share what has come out of all of our hard work in the next coming slides. And I'll just note that I think it's really unique for our organization to have such a huge advocacy base, and this is really something we should celebrate every year in every session, which is exciting. So that's all I have for advocacy wins. I will pass it back to Michael to go into our state budget.
Thanks, Josie. Yeah, I can't echo Josie more. A lot of this wins and a lot of the success that we had this session was because of all of you and your advocacy and your efforts that you were able to send messages and everything. So we, again, echoing Josie, we thank you. And a lot of this stuff is because of what you all did. So I'll go right into it. So this budget year was a very specifically difficult one, just because the past couple of years, I think there was a lot of good stuff that budget-wise that was going on. This year, we all kind of knew going into session that it was a little bit of a struggle to get all the money that we were asking for that we did last year for this year. So to just start off, I just want to let you guys all know that the total state budget for Illinois for FY25 was $53.1 billion, which is a $3 billion increase from what they were, what the state budget was from FY24. Within that, our advocacy ask for early childhood education and budget overall was a 20.4% increase, which was a total of $291.7 million. And this goes to early childhood block grant, early intervention, home visiting, childcare assistance program, and Smart Start. So that was our total ask. What was approved for early childhood for FY25 was a 18.1% increase, which is a $258.7 million overall increase for the early childhood budget. I know that obviously is a decrease of what we wanted, but I just wanted to preface that this was a huge win that even though it's not the whole ask that we got, we were asking for, we ended up still getting $18.1 million increase of additional money to the early childhood budget, which is a huge win again, because this was such a tight year. A lot of programs got cut in terms of funding or got very level funding, which meant no increases. So you guys should all be very proud of at least even getting to this amount of increase. Also, this budget increase also includes the $14.2 million that's going into the new Department of Early Childhood, which Angela will go a little bit more deeper into towards the end of the webinar. So let me break this down of what the $258.7 million consists of. So $158.5 million will go to the Childcare Assistance Program line and the what is a new line item called the Smart Start Workforce Grant line item. For all of you guys know, last year was the first year of Governor Pritzker's Smart Start initiative, which he has a 4-year plan of wanting to expand early childhood by creating more slots, waging increases, and providing continuous funding for very specific programs like early intervention and home visiting and CCAP. So this year, the $158.5 million that we were able to get for childcare service line item overall, $122 million of that is going towards workforce grants, which is workforce focus, which is $110 million for the Smart Start workforce grants, $10 million for the quality improvement grants, and then $2 million for apprenticeship programs that UIC is doing a lot of work in. Within that, $36.5 million will go to CCAP caseload. This will help with additional caseload growth that is happening within the CCAP program, and which is very much needed. So for fiscal year 25, we're expecting to have more families join into the CCAP program, where the $36.5 million will help cover. Next. The early childhood block grant. So again, Governor Pritzker has determined to allocate $75 million additional every year into the early childhood block grant. And this is for his goal of wanting to have 5,000 additional slots each year for the next 4 fiscal years. So with the $75 million last year, it helped create, I believe, a little bit over 5,000 preschool slots. This year, again, the $75 million will go towards that. And then for 2 more additional years, that is the goal, to have at least 20,000 new slots where the $75 million will go into. On top of that, it will continue to go towards increasing compensation for provider support for the workforce as well. Early intervention, this is where the number that you saw, the overall to what we were asking to what we actually got was the area that we didn't get the money that we were asking for. So for early intervention, the ask that we had for this year was $40 million to cover caseload growth, provider challenges, making sure that providers get the increased rates that they deserve. Unfortunately, the $40 million wasn't something we were able to get. $6 million was what was proposed, and that's the total amount that we ended up getting. This is the part where we were a little disappointed of not getting additional money. And we knew that $40 million was going to be a huge start to reach for, but we thought that we were at least going to try to get a little bit more than the $6 million that was budgeted by the governor's office. So unfortunately, the $6 million will only go towards the caseload growth. It won't go into any reimbursement rates, rate increases, or any other challenges that many providers are currently facing with early intervention. So hopefully next year we will do more and try to get definitely more money into EI. And then the last part of our overall budget ask was for home visiting. So this was another $5 million, which is a 21.8% increase from last year. This will help with additional funding to help with DHS's home visiting services for additional families. And then again, focusing on the workforce for increased compensation for home visiting providers. So these are a couple of additional early childhood budget requests that we were fighting for this year. This isn't necessarily in the Governor's Smart Start Initiative plan overall. The 4 main things that I just mentioned were the core of the Smart Start Initiative, but these are some of the additional work that we do on top of the Smart Start Initiative budget. So many of you guys know the early childhood construction grant is something that is very much needed for many programs in Illinois. What we were able to find out was that the funding that was appropriated last year was just reappropriated for fiscal year 25. So there's unfortunately no new money into the construction grants, but there will be money that wasn't spent out last year to be respent out this year. Many of you guys remember last year there was this issue of allowing only school districts to be able to apply for these grants, for early childhood construction grants. That was unfortunate that they put that into law. So this year, a lot of folks, I believe JUF was in the lead of trying to get this language out and making sure that all programs were eligible for the early childhood construction grants. So we were able to get that removed from the budget language, and now that that language is removed, all programs are able to get the early childhood apply for the early childhood construction grants. The second part is the off-hours childcare. Again, this is another reappropriation of the $2 million that was appropriated for off-hours childcare, or non-traditional care, for some of you guys know it as, where $2 million will be going to specific programs to help figure out what the needs and what the areas of how to really do non-traditional and off-hour childcare well within the state. And then lastly, many of you guys know the Early Childhood Access Consortium for Equity Scholarship Program that has been around for a couple of years now, I believe since 2021. The whole program itself was funded through ARPA money. So a lot of the work that we tried to do was to sustain and keep this momentum going. again, the governor only budgeted $5 million of GRF money to the ECA scholarship. We knew that we needed at least $60 million for this to continue and for new cohorts to come in for fiscal year 25. Unfortunately, we weren't able to get the $60 million. Again, that's a huge number for a very tight budget year. We were only able to get the $5 million that was budgeted by the governor, and we're hoping that the $5 million will go to those who are currently in the program, and hopefully those who are in the program will be able to finish their degrees within the time that they have. So that's about it for additional budget information. I'm going to pass it over to Josie to talk about the substantive stuff. Oh, actually, I'm sorry. One more thing. I forgot to mention the BIMP. So the budget implementation bill, HB 4959 this year, which is known as the BIMP, is a bill to implement the budget framework. This year, the one bill that we weren't able to get passed was to put the ECA scholarship into law. So prior to this, the original ECA's Act didn't have the scholarship as part of their part of the legislative act. So we had to go back and then make sure that the scholarship program was in law. So through the work of Advanced Illinois, Illinois Action for Children, and many others, we were able to get this ECA scholarship into law. So now this is permanent, but again, this is subject to appropriations. So the scholarship would continue to go as long as there is funding for it. Now I will pass over to Josie to talk about some legislative updates that happened this legislative session.
Thanks, Michael. I'll note that we will have a brief pause for questions after we go over all of these bills. So you can save them for later, or you can also drop them in the chat. I know this is a lot of information, so I just wanted to share that. But the next bill we want to go over, or we want to highlight, is the passing of SB 1, Senate Bill 1, which is the Department of Early Childhood Act. I'm sure you've seen this all over our social media and emails. But it's really exciting. This bill, for those of you who don't know, this bill establishes the new Department of Early Childhood, which is a new state agency with the goals of unifying all current existing early childhood services across the state into one new state agency. What's important to note is that this legislation creates the Department of Early Childhood effective July of this year in 2024, but it sets administration for this new agency to begin in July of 2026. So there's a 2-year transition period for the new agency to officially start up. This bill doesn't substantively change early childhood programs or service delivery in any way. And the bill merely codifies the new agency into law so that the state can begin to plan and prepare for administration to begin in 2026. And as Michael mentioned, $14.2 million was allocated in the state budget towards the new agency. And this funding will mainly go towards having upstart costs for staffing and administration. So this includes things like staffing and operations support, operation costs such as facilities, technology, licensing and services, funding to go towards evaluation processes and looking into procedures and systems for the new agency and collecting data and how easy it is to do that, things with technology assessments and general program workflow mapping. Funding will go towards professional development and staff training supports and other financial modeling supports. A lot of things going through these upstart costs, but Angela will be talking more about the transition in some later slides in this webinar. Next slide. More legislative updates. HB 4491, which is a bill co-sponsored by Representative Dias and Senator Johnson. This is related to childcare facility staffing flexibility during the open and close workday. This passed both chambers of the General Assembly, and it's now going to the governor's office for his signature. As some of you may have remembered, during the pandemic, DCFS enacted emergency rules to allow either a qualified early childhood director or an experienced early childhood teacher to be present during the first and last hour of the facility's workday. We know oftentimes programs are short-staffed or don't have qualified directors on site to open and close. So this bill specifically makes that staffing flexibility permanent by asking DCFS to make these rules changes. However, it does come with a caveat that the experienced early childhood teacher is required to have at least 2,880 hours, which is equivalent of 2 years of experience at the current facility to be able to be present during open and close. And this is to ensure that the early childhood teacher has had some experience in the facility and working with the children to open and close during the workday. So to ensure this change is implemented, the bill mandates DCFS to file rule changes by January 2025, and it includes a sunset provision set for June 30, 2029. Next slide. Okay, another exciting bill that was passed this session is HB 4951, which creates the Illinois Child Tax Credit Program. So the creation of the Child Tax Credit Program actually lives within the really big revenue legislation that was passed, which has several other state tax measures like changes to state gaming tax and other state tax initiatives, but it includes the Child Tax Credit Program. What's important to note is that what was passed is slightly different to what the advocates were asking for in the beginning, which was a per child tax credit. What was actually passed builds off of the state earned income tax credit, which is a state tax credit that can be claimed by individuals who meet the income requirements. Parents with children under 12 who qualify for the state EITC starting January 4 next year can claim the child tax credit and can receive roughly $300 to $600 depending on how many dependents they have. And it's tied to the earned income tax credit. So if you earn the EITC and you have a child under 12, your credit for that is boosted, basically. And then last thing I'll note is that this credit is inclusive and available to ITIN filers, disabled adults dependents, and senior care individuals. So this is really a huge win for families and children. The program will be funded by a $50 million appropriation for FY25, this upcoming fiscal year, and then $100 million the fiscal year after. Next slide. Okay, now I'm going to go over two other bills this session that were passed in the House, but not in the Senate, in the other chamber. And as we know, before a bill goes to the governor's office for his signature, it has to be passed by both legislative chambers. And so we're anticipating that these two bills will move during veto session in the fall. And that's a session where the General Assembly will gather to reassess bills that have been vetoed or rejected by the governor, and the General Assembly can pass it themselves. But veto session is also a time where the Assembly can move other bills and make additional appropriations decisions if needed. I'm going to kind of go in reverse order the bullet points and go over HB 4412 first, which was co-sponsored by Rep. Villa and Senator Capel. This bill allows child care facilities to have the option of using third-party vendors in addition to DCFS to collect fingerprinting for background checks for employment. So the goal for this bill is to help providers hire potential employees more quickly and really address this issues and long and laborious delays in fingerprinting, because as of now, providers are only allowed to go through DCFS to collect fingerprinting. One thing to note is that this bill doesn't include funding behind it. And so if providers do choose to use third-party vendors, it is the program that would be incurring the additional cost in doing so and not the state. So that's one bill. And the first bill on the slide is HB 814. And this is a bill that Illinois Action for Children actually partnered with lead sponsors, Rep. Syed and Senator Villabalom on it. And this bill codifies Illinois Department of Human Services to frequently engage community partners in making changes to the IDHS staffing and salary survey. And this is with making changes with the goals of promoting workforce recruitment and retention in the early childhood field. So specifically, the bill states that IDHS must get input from community partners, educators, and providers every 2 years on making changes to the survey, and at a minimum, update the survey every 4 years to make sure that these changes are really being actively listened to and implemented. So this would really give people in the field an opportunity to ask questions about the kind of data being collected in the survey, what questions are the state asking, and how we should change these aspects in the report. The intent for this bill is to really allow IDHS to better collect data that would help understand the current challenges in recruitment and retention in the field. And it will help address these concerns by creating strategies from the data collected. Strategies such as estimating the costs to allow CCAP to early childhood educators, and et cetera. So this was a bill that we were trying to push for, and it was derived from an earlier bill that was aiming to expand CCAP to more early childhood educators. But we really see HB 814 as a positive step forward in working with the department to collect the right data first and helping to determine the cost of these really good policy changes for CCAP. Next slide. Okay, I think that was it. Michael, back to you.
Yeah, so at this time, if there's any questions about budget or substantive bills that were passed or looking to be passed in veto, please let us know. Put in the chat, come off mute and ask questions. Either one works. So yeah, we'll leave it, give about a minute or two for people to ask questions. And then if there's no questions, then we can move on to the new Department of Early Childhood with Angela's presentation. So I will open up the floor.
Hi, this is Deborah. I had a question. There was a bill out there that related to, at least I thought that related to changing, I think, income levels for early child care workers to make it so that we could recruit more. What happened? I can't remember
Yeah.
the number, but what happened on that?
Yeah, that's a bill that, again, we were working with Rep. Saeta. So as Josie mentioned, that was the original bill of HB 814 that came from it. So the original bill was HB 40. Oh man, I forgot the number of it, but it's a bill that was to expand early childhood education for or CCAP for early childhood educators. We knew that this was going to be a hard bill to pass just because any bill with appropriations implications to it is always a bill that is very not favorable within the legislation, especially during a tough budget year. So we again had a couple of subject matter hearings on the topic to at least share the concerns and the need for expanding this for early childhood educators, the CCAP piece of it. Unfortunately, yeah, we weren't able to get that passed through any of the committees. So that's where we came up with a secondary idea to get more data. So if we can get more data on the folks of early childhood field that actually do need CCAP and provide that concrete idea to members of the General Assembly, we thought that we would have a better idea or better way of getting some sort of expansion passed within down in Springfield. So that's what the HB 814 is hoping to do. So hopefully within the staffing and survey data collection, we can get X amount of early childhood educators make X amount of money that can use CCAP, and then really have a cost estimate to really share with the General Assembly on how much it will cost to expand CCAP to early childhood educators by 275% FPL, 300% FPL.
Right.
So
Okay.
so that's kind of like, so again, we weren't able to get HB 4936 through the finish line, but we were able to get the data collection piece of it, and hopefully by November we can get that passed and have more concrete data to share, and that will in turn
Right,
help us expand.
right.
Yeah.
That's really helpful. If we can kind of better understand on an ongoing basis, kind of where you need more data or numbers or stories from local, early childhood collaboratives that work with a lot of childcare providers, it's helpful for us to know what you're looking for so we can start to assemble that kind of data, because I think we could maybe help that way.
Yeah, definitely. We'll definitely be reaching out. I know that at the end of this webinar, we're going to have a section where we want to hear from you all on what kind of policy areas that you guys want to focus on. And if this is something that you guys still want to try to pursue, then yeah, we'll definitely work with you all on trying to capture grassroots data from specific programs. Are there any other questions? If not, for sake of time, I will move it to Angela to talk about the new Department of Early Childhood, but I'll give it another second or two. And feel free to put them in the chat if you guys have questions later on. So ECACE, it was again just a budget issue. I think a lot of the work that we did in terms of advocating for the need for for the ECA scholarship was well done within all of our advocacy partners, but it was a matter of literally just they didn't have money to put into the ECACE program. Unfortunately, the $5 million, yeah, we all know is not enough to continue the robust recipients that we've had in the program, but we're hoping to regroup in the summer and get a better idea on how we can get more funding into ECA. So to answer that question, it was honestly just a money issue, and that in the fact that there was not enough money in the budget to go around. All right. If there's no other questions, I will move it to, pass it over to Angela to talk about the exciting news of the new Department of Early Childhood. Angela?
Thanks, Michael. Hi, everybody. I was just thinking I was going to try to do like a show of hands of like, who knows that there's going to be a new Department of Early Childhood. I can't see everybody because we're sharing our screen, but I do hope everyone has been made aware of this change. If you haven't, if this is the first time you're hearing about it, we're glad you're here, and we will definitely share some more information, and you can reach out anytime to us to help you understand it better to the best of our ability. So yes, we can go to the next slide. We are creating a new Department of Early Childhood, and this has been something that's been decades in the making, and it's the result of a lot of work, and it really comes out of the fact that our current early childhood system, it's a great system. We've all worked it and used it to help children and families thrive and succeed, but it's a lot to navigate, and it limits our ability to make sure that all children and families are thriving. We have 3 state agencies in early childhood. We have multiple funding streams that we all have sort of understood and mixed and matched to try to provide high quality services. We have sort of complicated eligibility requirements that sometimes overlap, sometimes don't. We've got enrollment processes that sometimes can involve lots of paperwork and follow-up. And so because of this, there has been a desire to think about how we can do our system and make it more fair, make it better and simpler for families. So if we go to the next slide, I wanted to provide a little bit of background on where this new agency, where the idea really got a lot of momentum, and so that it's coming to fruition now. So you all may remember a few years ago, Governor Pritzker convened the Early Childhood Funding Commission, and that group met multiple times, engaged lots of folks in trying to come up with key recommendations to make our system simpler, better, and fairer. And there were 3 recommendations that came out of that commission. One is, let's determine what it actually costs to do early childhood, make it work for every child and family in our state, because before that we didn't really have a number. And so that number was determined, and it's $14 billion, which is a lot, but that is state and federal money. And we are investing several billion currently. So we've got some work to do there, but we're on our way. There was also a recommendation to coordinate funding in ways that are more aligned, that are streamlined, and to get that money distributed out to programs and providers in ways that are easier to navigate and provide more predictability in funding. And then the third recommendation, and this was a debated recommendation, but it was ultimately the recommendation of the commission, is that early childhood programs in Illinois, the core programs, should be centralized into one new standalone early childhood agency. So these recommendations came out in 2021, and it took us a couple of years, but flash forward to the next slide and also to 2023, when Governor Pritzker announced in the fall of this year that a new unified early childhood agency would be created. He issued an executive order. And since that announcement, we've had a couple important milestones occur up until this point. So our legislative session started, and we just heard all the things that were happening during that session, including the bill to create the new Department of Early Childhood. That bill was approved by the Illinois General Assembly on May 9th. That bill, Senate Bill 1, does create the new Department of Early Childhood, which will officially launch on July 1st of 2024. So actually, just in a few short weeks, the agency will launch. However, a key piece here, and you'll notice that time jump in those last two bullets, is that while the department will be launching and will be doing a lot of work to build up its infrastructure, the programs that the department is going to be administering, those programs are going to stay at their current agencies for the next 2 years. They will then move over on July 1st, 2026, and the Department of Early Childhood will begin administering them. And I just want to pause on the picture at the top. That's a photo of just some of the folks that worked with the governor and his team, and with the sponsors of the bill, Representative Mary Beth Canty and Leader Kimberly Lightford in the Senate, to make sure that Senate Bill 1 got over the finish line. And again, big thanks to all of you who contacted your lawmakers, who filed witness slips, who shared the need for this on social media. It would not have happened without you. So thank you again. I think if we go to the next slide, just wanted to share a few just basics on the new agency. We are going to be joining a handful of other states that have created their own early childhood agencies. As Governor Pritzker himself said, we are not the first state to do this, but we want to be the best state at doing this, which is a really exciting vision and goal for all of us to work towards. The new department is going to bring together those programs from the 3 state agencies: Illinois State Board of Education, the Illinois Department of Human Services, and the Department of Children and Family Services. So it's going to pull programs out of those 3 agencies and run them out of the new Department of Early Childhood. Again, that won't happen for another 2 years, while the state undergoes a really thoughtful and intentional engagement planning and redesign process. Can we go to the next slide? So this is a visual, if you all can see, of the programs that have been proposed to move out of those 3 state agencies into the new Department of Early Childhood. I'm going to read them here. I do want to say that this is an evolving process, and I'll point out some things that are still sort of being determined, and we'll see if we can get an updated slide in here that would maybe show where the current situation is. Again, it is evolving, so we'll just try to keep you as updated as possible. But at the Illinois State Board of Education, the programs that are under the Early Childhood Block Grant, so that's Preschool for All Expansion, and Prevention Initiative, those will all be moving over. Early Childhood Special Education, they're still examining what makes sense there based on federal law. It might make sense for that to actually stay at the Illinois State Board of Education. I think that's something that the state and the working groups are going to be exploring, what makes sense for that particular program. For the Department of Human Services, the Child Care Assistance Program will be moving over, CCAP, early intervention, and home visiting. Excuse me one moment. I'm so excited. I'm talking so fast. I'm losing my voice. I apologize. Finally, licensing, childcare licensing will be moving from the Department of Children and Family Services over to the new department. Next slide. So I won't read this slide to you, but just wanted to capture a few of our hopes for this new agency, what the possibilities that we see for it and the potential. to help us really ensure equitable access to programs, to help us fully support and invest in our early childhood educators across settings and across programs. More aligned program requirements to make it easier to navigate our system. And then local communities, really centering local communities in this process and investing in the communities and the programs and the services that those families want and need in their community. Next slide. So we just wanted to also hear, there's a lot going on, and I know it's a lot to follow, and we'll be sending all these materials out and connecting you to ways you can get involved. But now that the bill is passed, this work is really getting underway in earnest. So there are a lot of meetings and work groups that are being stood up. The Transition Advisory Committee is meeting monthly to advise on the transition. There's bi-monthly listening sessions that anyone can join to learn more updates about the new agency and participate. You can ask questions. There's usually a Padlet exercise or something you can do where you can put in your feedback. Work groups have been formed on specific topics, multilingual learners, children with special needs, and the data work group are already underway and more will be coming. There's also a design workshop process that's happening, being led by Shy by Design. So they're engaging focus groups to think about what does redesigning our system look like when we center parents and providers in that process. There will also be regional listening sessions that will be coming soon. So stay tuned for more information about how to get involved in those. And then finally, here's a way to get involved. And there's a lot of links here, and we'll send all of these out. We would encourage you, a lot of this information is available on the website, on the OECD website. You all may remember that's the Office of Early Childhood Development. They're still using that as a platform to host all of their materials and meeting notices. So you can see the schedule for the Transition Advisory Committee meeting there. You can see the bi-monthly listening session schedule there. There's also a survey you can fill out to share your views. And you can also sign up so that you're on the email list to get all of the updates that you're sharing. So we can't encourage you enough to go to this website and put your name down and start sharing your feedback. And yeah, more information will be coming. So that's all I have. I know that was a lot. I know I lost my voice there halfway through. Thanks for bearing with me. And I really look forward to your questions and to share more information about this going forward.
So we will open it back up for questions. So if any of you guys have questions around the new department, please feel free to come off mute again or put it in the chat. The website is a GOECD. I could put that website in there. Give me 1 second.
While Michael's doing that, he'll put the link in the chat. It's the Governor's Office of Early Childhood Development. And so for those that are familiar with the Early Learning Council, that's where they were posting those meeting notices. They've created a separate tab now on the website for the new Early Childhood Agency. So that's where you need to click to go see all this information. And we'll put that link in the chat.
All right, any other questions regarding the new department?
We will be sending a follow-up email after this presentation that'll include the link to this presentation and some of the resources we're sharing. Thanks for that question, Deborah. But we still have more, so don't leave yet.
All right. I don't see any questions in the chat, and I don't think anyone came off mute. So I will move us along to the last section of our webinar, which is getting input from you all on what areas do you want to see us focusing on for fiscal year 26 and the new legislative session in January. So what we're gonna do is obviously you guys see the question here. We're gonna have 3 questions for everyone to answer, and then we're gonna put in a polling section where you guys can provide input through Zoom poll. So we will go ahead and do that. So the first survey question is, what policy changes would you like to see next legislative session? This could be something that is continuous that happened this session to go into next session, something brand new you guys aren't thinking about. So just feel free to pop it in and then submit it, and then we will collect them and report them out to you all as well. I wish I had Jeopardy music to play, but I don't know how to do that, so just play that in your mind if you want to.
Right, poll is launched. I'm going to give folks a few minutes to respond. I can see how many are coming through.
All right, we'll keep it open for a couple more minutes.
While we're waiting for the polling, I can try to answer Teresa's question in the chat, which is, will this new agency make it easier for CCAP billing? So I have two responses to that. One is the Department of Early Childhood will be administering the CCAP program for the state, for the entire state, starting in July 2026. Will it make it easier for CCAP billing? That is certainly something that I think a lot of people are hoping for. And I would encourage you to share that feedback as a priority for the new agency when, in that form, or if you get the chance to go to a listening session. As one of the main goals of this is to make the administration of early childhood simpler and easier to navigate. And so we know this is a challenge for a lot of folks, and would just encourage you to share that. Thanks for sharing it with us, and sharing it in other places if you have the chance to weigh in on the new agency.
Do folks need another minute or two on the poll, or are we feeling good? I still see them trickling in, so I don't want to end while someone's typing. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll. And we can share results out. Oh, you know what? I was hoping it would show detailed responses, but I don't know.
Bree, if not, we can collect them and then go through them and then share them out when we email everyone else. So no worries.
Okay, yeah, I can see them on my side, but I don't know that I can share them out.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right, Josie is going to do the second question.
Yes. Okay, so we have another, I think it's our second poll question. But as we learned about stuff from the new agency from Angela, what are some important considerations for you, there's a parent, provider, educator, or advocate, as the state transitions or Illinois ECEC programs transition into the new Department of Early Childhood? It's a loaded question, but just if you have any concerns, are you excited about anything? What are some things that are coming up for you that can help us bring these to the table? And if overall you're just excited, you could just put a smiley face. And I think that should work.
I'm seeing responses coming through. I'll give it another couple of minutes because I see them ticking up. So I know I don't want anyone to get cut off.
All right, another 45 seconds or so. All right, 10-second countdown. All right. Should we close it? Thanks, Bree. All right, thank you guys. One last question we have. So again, we want to engage you guys all in advocacy as much as possible. And one great way to do this is to host a site visit of your program to your legislators that represent your district. So if you have any interest in wanting to do this, just say yes. If you don't, I guess you don't really technically have to say no. You just don't have to reply. So if you are interested in it, just let us know, and then hopefully we will be able to set something out with your member over the summer or in fall, and then that way you guys can discuss some of the vision you have for the new agency and or some policy concerns that you guys have that you guys would like to share with them. So, yep. Feel free to provide this. I know we're at 1 o'clock, which is the end of our webinar, but for the sake of this and to close everything out, if you guys don't mind staying on for another minute or two, that would be great.
All right, we've got some responses and I'll give people another 15 seconds or so. Okay, thanks everyone.
Okay. I think this is me, right, Michael? Okay. Some last minute announcements as we wrap up. We want to continue encouraging you guys to stay updated with our team. And this can look like joining our We the Village coalition, which is headed by our advocate team, Illinois Action for Children. And this is a really great space, a very safe space too for anyone involved in early childhood field to really get involved in these advocacy actions throughout the entire year. So we can drop that in the chat to join and see our upcoming meetings. And then we also have a monthly newsletter called eAdvocate, where we regularly post updates and links and opportunities and fun stuff. And we're going to send our next one next week. So make sure to, if you're not signed up yet, we're going to drop that link in the chat too, to get onto eAdvocate. Next slide. And then this is our contact information for me, Angela, and Michael. If you guys have any more questions or want to reach out or didn't get to explain something in some of the survey questions. As we're closing out this webinar, we want to say a huge thank you to everyone who's been on this journey with us this past session and for even years prior. It means a lot that you guys are engaged in this work and you all do really important things for the field, whether it's being a parent, provider, or even one of our advocacy partners, which I see really great things in the field for. So we want to keep this conversation going, and we want this to be a space where we can continue advocating and fighting for children and families across the state. So that's the end of our webinar. I appreciate everyone for coming here. Great to see familiar faces, and hopefully we can continue keeping touch beyond this.
All right, thank you everyone. See you soon.
Thank you guys.